Just help me. I've got only 5 minutes, so I think I skip the first 15, 16 slides, straight come to the summary. I don't think we need to get convinced on the problems that we are facing. That's why we have this session here. We know about Indian economy, it needs more power, energy mix is more coal, coal consumption going down, electricity consumption going up. Demand for power is going to double in 10 years. We have problems on coal, gas, oil, hydro, renewable, nuclear. Okay, now there are many suggestions. I'll straight go to the summary so that it just stays there. First and foremost, just to tell you that I think most of us would know, but still it's important to know that the import of coal has gone up by five times in the last 10 years, from 20 million tons to 100 million tons per annum. And I don't see any capacity in the 12th plan coming up without depending on imported coal. I don't think that the current fuel supply agreements can be fully met by the current capacity that we have in India, even if you enhance it further by some PPP modes and all that. While on that subject, I think the coal privatization and the Nationalization Act, I've read it once very carefully, so I'm not an expert lawyer, but I understand. There is a Supreme Court judgment in many cases where a dynamic interpretation of the Constitution and statute is being recommended. So when it was passed, in the context it was, and when it is now, there are words which suggest that there is a stretched, I would not say stretched, a dynamic interpretation possible even today, where you can bring private sector, provided they are controlled by the government. The use of the term is owned or controlled by the government. What is control? You have a mining company who's been told, this is the price to be paid, these are the customers you will have, that's it. So it becomes a controlled company. Now what they do, how they spend is their problem. You fix the price at which the coal will be sold. EGOM can decide who will get that coal. So this is one suggestion I have. If somebody finds it's of some use, one can go deeper into it. Next, coming to the supply side. How do we handle the supply side of power? If we produce more power with a given input of energy, it solves the problem. Or how do we get more coal? Or how do we do without coal? So in terms of supply side, I think the PPAs that we have do not give enough incentives to the producers to invest on improving the fuel efficiencies. Now, if you look at the investment required to improve the fuel efficiency of the existing plants, the incentives are not enough. Same is the case with PLFs. There's a lot of work can be done. Investment is required to improve PLFs. So we need to really look at the new PPA terms. Can they have some sort of an incentive within them, which the power procurers and the consumers pay for? Other could be also, there is, of course, we are talking about penalties to CIL. Why don't we look at incentives also to CIL? CIL is a listed company. If it produces more, okay, it gets the same price that it would get, but a higher revenue. Why don't we look at a PPA structure with the help of the regulators that beyond the 85% or so, there should be an incentive enough for the producer, for the supplier of coal, who helps in improving the PLF, and also some sharing with the consumer. We can work out a model and suggest later on. Other thing which we are saying is that the fear of fuel risk is preventing a lot of investors, Indian as well as overseas, to come into the sector. Imagine for a minute that the fuel is all procured by DISCOMs. All allocations of mines can be given to DISCOMs. Even under the current dispensation, it doesn't debar. We in DISCOMs in Delhi had applied for a coal block. We didn't get it. So I don't know. I don't want to ask why. But if a coal block is owned by a DISCOM, you can easily get power producers to come and bid based on their efficiency of capital, their efficiency of procuring the best EPC prices, the efficiency of fuel that they have to consume. So my view is that DISCOMs, if collectively were to even import coal, they can have a huge advantage. Coal India can have coal mines outside. DISCOMs can buy. The price issues will be all put at rest. Lastly, on the coal side, I think this is what I wanted to say. Coming to the renewable, I think the problem gets solved if we really look at very seriously what are the things which are possible and don't need amendments in law and all that to encourage the renewable energy. Now, we all know REC is a good mechanism, but it is not finding the market. Now, it will take a few years. You can't enforce because the DISCOMs have a problem of financial health. But DISCOMs are, and the consumers are paying 50 rupees per ton of coal into this NCEF, the National Clean Energy Fund. It can be 100. It won't really make a big difference. But if that fund can support the REC market as a last resort buyer for unsold RECs, the fund can be actually holding those RECs, and in good times, the fund can make money. Or at best, it could be a write-off. In any case, the fund is giving monies as grants, which is a write-off forever. So my suggestion would be to seriously look at REC support through NCEF. Next is we are looking at to encourage renewable power capacity addition, a green corridor investment. It's a good initiative, something like 43,000 crores being talked about, but ultimately it has to be paid by the consumers of power, either that power or the pool cost. But if you look at the green corridor, is going to only help evacuation of renewable power. It will not be able to shift the consumption time of the power produced. Our analysis shows that if you only look at storage as a solution, you can create a base load, you can create a wind farm into a peaking station, you can choose when you want to consume and store the power. There could be maybe a 10 to 15% cost increase, but it can be scalable. You don't need to wait for the 40,000 crores of investment to come in, and then you're dependent on the choice of those locations which it will serve. So that's another suggestion. I thought I'll leave it in this audience. We have been talking about accelerated depreciation as one of the things which used to discourage generation of units, rather than it used to only encourage upfront capacity addition. Once capacity is added, tax savings taken, nobody is looking at how much is the generation coming from those assets, though it really makes sense to look at it. One suggestion that one can make is that this accelerated depreciation, which gives the investor an upfront cash, be withdrawn if the total generation during the period, which is X, let's say 13 million units you need to produce to get the full GBI benefit, which is a generation-based incentive. If that kind of generation is not happening in an AD project, that much tax break should be withdrawn, ab initio, and interest paid. So while you are giving accelerated depreciation, you are not leaving the asset standard without having the risk of having to pay the tax again. This used to work in investment allowances for new new industries. There are certain conditions in which the investment allowance tax benefit used to get withdrawn, but that was binary. Either it is fully withdrawn or it stays. Here, what I'm suggesting is that they should be linked to the total production. If the production is half of what he would have produced to get the GBI, then half of the tax benefit should come back. This is one of the other avenues to promote renewable energy, and we have a limited GBI fund, and therefore this could probably broaden the base of incentives which are available to produce green power. Hybrid electric vehicles will go a long way in absorbing the renewable power produced during off-peak. So you don't even need storage of batteries. In fact, a very interesting story I'll tell you. We had in NDPL, where I used to work until last year, a lot of staff used to come from Noida and Gurgaon, neighboring states, Ghaziabad. And they said, sir, the whole day we talk about reliability of supply. When we go back home, there is no power in our homes because they are not in Delhi. So we tried 3 vehicles which they used to get charged in Delhi and use as an inverter in their house overnight. So this was export of, maybe illegal, I don't know, export of power. But from there, and we looked at something similar happening in Denmark, where they have the offshore wind, where the huge power which they have to either scale down. So they have almost a free kind of power at that time. When the surplus is huge, they can't export. So I think the hybrid vehicles using electricity can be a good advantage to the renewable sector. Open access have been talked of. I believe open access is a good thing, and not only from the point of view of the DISCOM having to sort of only serve the vested consumers or the regulated consumers, but also I think it creates a very financially healthy demand for future capacities. There are many investors I know are afraid of selling to, putting all eggs in one basket and, or waiting for a PPA. PPA, I think the open access is going to be something which will really improve the counterparty risk for the investors, and they can choose which customers to look at. Off-grid generation and distribution franchisee. The model that I'm talking about is that today any off-grid power generation which is renewable is not being bought by the DISCOMs. We are talking about 30% of the population being not connected. To connect them will take X number of years, so much of cost on transmission, carbon footprint, all that, right of ways and all. If we look at off-grid solutions, come distribution franchisee to the same agency, it will solve a lot of problems. Today, off-grid generation is a bilateral discussion. The consumer who is the most deprived guy in terms of financial capability is being asked to pay 10 rupees. After 3 years, he'll ask his friends in the city, what are you paying? They'll pay 4 rupees. Why should he pay more? So if we socialize this problem of unconnected consumers and speed up, accelerate the off-grid generation come distribution franchisee, in which case that power is deemed to be bought by the DISCOM and the consumer pays only what the state tariff is. As a minister, I would be very happy to make a statement, look, हम लोग solar power ला रहे हैं 3 रुपए में. So it's direct, and it is also areas where the land is cheap. It will also become very inclusive project because the entire community would want to, they'll come and clean the panels themselves because they want power. And lastly, the off-grid investment will not have a risk tomorrow of DISCOMs coming in there and they become standard. As far as the demand side risk mitigation measures are concerned, I think huge, and that's the cheapest way of solving the problem. If you reduce the demand, there is no power required. Energy efficiency, I don't know to talk about. Demand side management is fine. Tariff rationalization, I think my experience has been that the demand for electricity is largely price elastic. If the prices go up, not that they should be going up only for this reason, but they do need to go up, the demand becomes more prudent. AT&C loss reduction is going to achieve the same objective. In 2004-05, in the company I used to work for, AT&C loss reduced by 11% in 1 year because we had mass scale change of meters. National increase in tariff, consumption per capita was 7 to 8% that year. In our case, it was minus 10%. The demand for power went down by 10% post AT&C reduction. That really shows that if you have to pay for power, you will not consume the irrational portion of your demand. Lastly, which I have not mentioned, I think the time of day metering, which will take time because the meters are expensive, we did try in Delhi a seasonal tariff, which didn't really catch attention of people because the difference was only 10 paisa. Also, the consumption pattern of consumers to switch from X AM to Y AM, from AC to coolers is not going to happen. But if you know the seasons, there are 2 seasons in the country mostly, which are peak. So if the tariffs are higher during those peak seasons and corresponding lower the one, I think the consumption pattern will get adjusted in such a way that a lot of peak will come down and also the demand will actually become prudent. I think these are the points I thought I'll leave it for your consideration. Thank you.